you need to have this attitude around presenting the fee like it is what it is. They know it's going to cost before they walk through the door. You're not cold
Mhm.
calling. You're not trying to sell them something they don't want. They
Yeah.
picked you, they scheduled, they showed up, and they know it's going to cost.
Hmm.
So when you get to that part of the conversation, if you're just, here's the fee, and let me know how you'd like to set up the financing.
Hmm.
Here's options if you're paying in full. Here's options if you're doing a down payment. Here's options for extended financing. Which would you prefer?
Thanks everybody for joining today's interview. I'm here with Brooke Oliphant. Brooke, thanks so much for being here today.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
She is the owner of Straight Up Sales Consulting, and has a wealth of experience, both as a TC herself, as well as coaching tons of TCs all over the nation and helping doctors and their team members get on board with some really amazing cutting edge sales techniques and beliefs that help them bring their practices to the next level. So we're really excited to learn from you, Brooke, today. And what I want to start out with, first of all, anything you'd add to your introduction, and then
Oh,
also just some background on you. Anything else
no, thank you
you'd
for
want
the
us to know?
introduction.
Yeah.
Yes, background in treatment coordinating, and because it was such a journey for me of highs and lows and trial and error, or just a frustration of being stuck in
Hmm.
industry average or not meeting goals, and also just feeling like I was on an island, that it was a little
Hmm.
bit like a misunderstood position in the
Yeah.
practice. I went through a journey of, reinventing and changing in my own trial and error that ultimately got it to a place of a greater than 90% annual conversion rate and a same day conversion rate over 80%, and just so much happiness, like so much joy and success in that space because it was working.
Hmm.
And what I found in going to conventions, conferences, is that there was very little for sales for the treatment coordinators. Like there wasn't much that I could even attend and come
Hmm.
home and go, oh, I'm re-inspired, or I'm going to do this, that, or the other, and somehow be better at my job. And so there is definitely, this lacking education. And then also this kind of tension in the industry of those who are, oh, it's not sales. Sales is
Hmm.
icky. Like, I don't like that word, right? So
Yeah.
I'm just here to help people. It's not sales. And I really think that you have to have the right mindset for, like, just call it what it is. And then as soon as you acknowledge that the treatment coordinator position is a sales position, then you're able to design an experience for the new patient that is intended to sell. Where if you just say, I'm here to answer questions, or I'm here to help people, um, then you let them walk away more
Hmm.
often than not. So I think that some of the reason why industry average, the conversion rate average within orthodontics is 50%, which is a bad business model, right? Like if you
Hmm.
were writing out a business model and said, and I'll start 50%
Hmm.
of my clients, that's a lot of work, you know?
Yeah.
And so helping treatment coordinators do their job better and experience a higher level of success and just love what they're doing more, while also seeing the orthodontist be more successful all the way around. It is just such a cool opportunity that I have to share in other people's businesses. And that
Hmm.
was where I kind of hit the glass ceiling of my experience as a treatment coordinator and said, I want to have a greater impact. And
Hmm.
I'm not alone, and it's not going to resolve itself. So, how can I help other people love their jobs and be more successful, and also help these orthodontists who are working in such a cool industry? Like, transforming people's smiles is only happy business, right? So,
Yeah.
to help them be more successful professionally is really cool.
Very cool. I love that.
Yeah.
And so there's so many questions I want to
Oh,
ask.
sure.
First is, you mentioned being a TC is sort of like being on an island. And,
Oh, yeah.
you also mentioned, and maybe this has changed in the past year since you've started your company, but there seems to be less sales coaching out there than coaching on any other aspect of the practice. And
There really
You
is.
know, the clinical side, I'm sure just gets harped on and harped on, and that's what
Right.
the doctors nerd out on. That's what they love.
Yes.
But sales is so necessary. So tell us, why is the TC position different in the office? Why can it feel like someone's on an island? Let's start there, and then I have a follow-up question for
Okay.
you.
Yeah, so I think I felt that way personally, and I've heard it from other treatment coordinators. So I know it's not just a me thing,
Hmm.
but as the treatment coordinator, often you're the one salesperson, you're the only treatment coordinator in a practice. Or even if there are two or three treatment coordinators, you don't necessarily work in the same location, and you definitely don't work in the same shared space.
Hmm.
So in the clinic, you've got this open bay, you have all your
Hmm.
clinicians, they're interacting with each other. Maybe it's two at a chair at once. They have a shared experience and they can hear what each other is saying. Where for a treatment coordinator, most of their professional experience is in an office space with a stranger. It's
Hmm.
with the customer, and it's going to start over, whether those consults are 45 minutes, an hour and a half. Whenever the next one shows up, the process starts over again, but you're not
Hmm.
really sharing that experience with any of your other team members. And so it can become a little bit, I don't know, lonely is the right word, but
Yeah.
you're the only person as the TC that knows the highs and lows in journey, or that you're taking with people, or
Hmm.
what a huge win it was for someone to say yes same day, or what a massive letdown it is that someone that you feel like you poured your heart and soul into them and they were so bought in, and then for whatever reason they're walking out the door without committing, like
Hmm.
that disappointment. And so it is a journey that is solo, kind of unlike, if you've got multiple people at the front desk,
Yeah.
multiple people in the clinic, they have more of a shared experience.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Um, and I think maybe part of the reason that they don't get, as the doctor in the bay, working with the assistants, kind of seeing what the front desk does, they can provide correction or insight or, hey, please do this way. Whereas the
Yes.
TC the doctor's going to come in for a little bit during the consult, but the
Right.
doctor's not watching every single thing they do. And so they get
Mm-mm.
less opportunity for that face time
Yes. Yeah.
of correction and training inside the office.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of it is feedback to the treatment coordinator. If
Mm.
numbers, like you're looking at reports, it's based on end result,
Yeah.
right? As opposed to,
Yes.
hey, if you said this, that, or the other thing differently at this moment in time, or,
Mm.
because really that window of time that the doctor is in a consultation, he or she is speaking directly to the patient,
Hmm.
and the treatment coordinator is observing that interaction.
Yeah.
Is taking notes, is preparing to kind of move on after the doctor leaves. So it is one of those things where no one is observing and has that opportunity, like you said, to coach someone if they're struggling. And
Yeah.
we don't necessarily know when we're all by ourselves in that
Oh,
moment,
a
like what
thousand
are our
percent.
strengths and weaknesses, right? Like,
Yeah.
so you really have to be good at self-coaching, or being, almost competitive with yourself if
Mm.
you're going to get better, hungry to learn and improve without the motivation or insight from others.
Got it.
So, yes.
So I'd love to hear the follow-up question is, tell us a story about a TC that you've coached who felt like they were on an island, had that close to 50% close rate,
Yeah,
and what the process was like bringing them to a point where they're, loving their job a lot more than they were before and closing a lot more than they were before.
sure. Yeah, I think it really boils down to confidence. I think when you go into a position with very little training, oftentimes
Mhm.
the training that a treatment coordinator receives is passed down.
Hmm.
It's like grandma's recipe, right? Like
Yeah.
there's a few maybe tips or tricks, but a lot of it is just chart this way, set the room up this way. You're going to greet the patient, you're going to answer some questions, you're going to chart for
Hmm.
the doctor, and then you're going to present a fee.
Mm.
And it's a little bit like without real skill and confidence around how to close a sale, really to ask for them to say yes. And then if
Mm.
they aren't, to at a certain point, if you can't figure out why, ask them to say no. Right. So just really directing the conversation with the purpose of closing.
Mm.
And because there isn't training around that, there's a lack of confidence because it's discouraging. Like it's
Mm.
hard when 50% of people just walk away. Every treatment coordinator is great at having conversation and answering
Yeah.
questions. They're friendly, right? Like I never hear a doctor or a treatment coordinator describe the treatment coordinator as someone who isn't friendly or easy
Yeah.
to talk to. So that's
Yeah.
not the problem. But confidence around money or closing.
Mm.
So I was working with a treatment coordinator who was bubbly and sweet and chatty and just so friendly for all of the consultation until the discussion of money. And then it
Mm.
was like, let me put on my serious hat. And
Mm.
the whole energy, like the tone of the
Wow.
conversation changed. Now this is serious. We're
Mm.
talking about money, right? We're talking about insurance. And so it wasn't just in what was being said, but it was how it was being said that really just killed the vibe of the
Mm.
consultation, right? And then as soon as there was a single bit of, oh, well, I'm not sure, then it was almost like the treatment coordinator was validated.
Mm.
Like, yeah, okay, well, then go home and think about it,
Mm.
right? Like, I agree with you. This is a big decision. This is a lot of money, you know?
Yeah.
So when I was working with her, she was in her 20s. She'd never really made much of a big financial investment in her own life before. She
Mm.
did have a personal belief that $6,000 or $7,000 was a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And also, just was uncomfortable. Like money hadn't really ever been discussed in her family growing up. Like it was just kind of a hush hush private thing. And so she just had her own personal discomfort around having financial conversations and also this belief that it was expensive.
Mm.
Right. So then she's almost apologizing for the price when she's presenting it to the
Yeah.
patient.
Yeah.
And so my journey with her, my journey with any treatment coordinator, if the conversion rate is a problem, then it comes to that end point in the conversation. Um, and so figuring out what her sticking points were, what she was personally projecting into that conversation, and then helping her just do it enough that, kind of repracticing and getting more comfortable with that conversation, that you need to have this attitude around presenting the fee like it is what it is. They know it's going to cost before they walk through the door. You're not cold
Mm-hmm.
calling. You're not trying to sell them something they don't want. They
Yeah.
picked you, they scheduled, they showed up, and they know it's going to cost.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get to that part of the conversation, if you're just, here's the fee, and let me know how you'd like to set up the financing.
Mm-hmm.
Here's options if you're paying in full. Here's options if you're doing a down payment. Here's options for extended financing. Which would you prefer?
Yeah.
Right. And you just give it back to them. So her big win was that she had her first, within days of her and I working on that together, she had her first 100% conversion day.
Very cool.
So calling me like 3 consults and all 3 signed same day. And it was, yes, like this is
Mm.
good. We're moving in the right direction. But
That's very
a lot of
cool.
it's confidence and it's also personal.
Yeah.
So um,
And
that's
what did you do to break that down? Like, were you like, look, this isn't actually expensive, or this is what did
oh,
you do to
sure.
help that mindset in her?
It's not everyone can have a different opinion about what's expensive or not, right? But it's
Mm-hmm.
also priority. Like
Mm.
someone could save up. I had patients who lived barely above poverty, but had saved money for many years for the purpose of orthodontics because it mattered that much to them.
Mm.
So a lot of it's just not judging the book by its cover and
Mm-hmm.
not projecting your own opinions about it into
Yeah.
their situation. So we can all choose whether we're spending a lot on shoes or not very much, or a lot on clothing because we're loyal to a brand or not very much,
Mm,
and whether we're going to invest in braces or not. And it's not your job as the treatment coordinator to project any of your own, beliefs about money or what's expensive or what isn't into
yeah.
someone's situation. It's just to help them navigate how to afford it because it's what they want.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, it's your job not to project that.
Exactly. Exactly. And then I back up from there. Like I work with my treatment coordinators because so much of my coaching is about getting the same day
Mm,
commitment. How can we be following up less? Right?
yeah.
Like if your goal is a 80, 90% conversion rate, you're not going to meet that goal if you're letting 50% of the people walk out the door and then trying to play a follow-up game.
Yeah.
It's impossible. Like, and it's too much work and it's
Yeah.
exhausting and you risk burnout. So because it's all about the same day sale, it's getting these micro commitments and talking about starting right away before the money is presented.
Mm,
You have to have people essentially sold, like they're asking you to get started
yeah.
before you talk about money. And
Yes.
then that's just the crossing T's and dotting I's. It's like, okay, well,
Yeah.
let's figure out this part so that we can get you back to the clinic. Yay, I'm so excited for you. And
Yeah.
that doesn't need to be the big elephant in the room. It's a given. So some of
Yeah.
it is just your reworking mindset and then how you communicate and how you lead the patient through the conversation so that it's not intimidating for you as the treatment coordinator to talk about money, and also you're just not giving it the same kind of weight
Mm,
as maybe you were.
yeah. And you think from a business perspective, it's like how Invisalign has left in consult or in office like time, right? So I
Yeah,
mean, the lab fee is higher, but you have less
sure,
time that
time.
you're spending in staff time and time in the office.
Yes.
And because of that, it's technically higher margin. Same thing with same day starts. Like you've got a higher margin both on your emotions and your burnout, like you
Exactly.
said, but also just on
Yes.
time. Like the doctor is saving hundreds, thousands of dollars over a year in the TC's time doing follow-up when they can just get it right the first time. It's very cool.
Yes. Yes,
Very
it
cool.
is. And the flip side of that, like you have kind of this weight or stress. Like if a treatment coordinator gets to a point of having almost 100% full schedule,
Mm,
then your back-to-back appointments, you barely have enough time to write the chart notes for the
mm,
people that you're seeing today. And I mean, I got to a place where I had sticky notes from the front desk, like people to call back, and I wasn't getting to it for a couple of days. Or,
mm,
you get to the end of the week and go, oh my gosh, I haven't done any of my follow-ups yet. And so there is that risk when someone walks out the door that if the practice isn't really staffed and trained and kind of designed to be playing the follow-up game consistently and well,
hmm.
that those people start to even fall through the cracks
Yeah.
because the treatment coordinator doesn't necessarily have the capacity to be full-time seeing new consults and also putting all of the hours in to
Yes.
following up if that list is rapidly growing.
Yes.
So yes,
Yes.
another reason why same day contract is where
The
it's at.
best. Yeah.
Yes.
Love it. So talk us through a little bit more. What's the process? Where do you plant the seeds so that, when they get in the consult room, it's an automatic yes, and they go into um, they go get braces on immediately after.
So I recommend introducing that concept to the new patient prior to their appointment.
Mm.
So receiving an introduction that's specifically from the treatment coordinator that's,
Hmm.
yay, I'm so excited to meet you, and kind of outlines what to expect in the appointment and plants that seed of, hey, there's, cost savings and time savings if you decide to get started same day. So please have conversations ahead of time so that you're prepared to take advantage of that if
Nice.
that's the best fit for you,
Nice.
that kind of a thing. So you're planting the seed. And then I've seen treatment coordinators, like I've watched so many consultations where the appointment really up until they meet the doctor is just about like talking about favorite travel destinations or what sports do the kids play, and lots of interpersonal, like we're becoming friends, which is great, like that makes someone comfortable, but it doesn't take them from shopper to buyer in one appointment, right? So I work with the treatment coordinators on being very intentional in the style of communication and the way that you're getting your prospect engaged from the moment that you start talking to them. And in a less is more. I think us treatment coordinators like to talk, and we're smart and we have the answers and all of that. So a lot of times my PCs are oversharers. Someone asks what the difference is between braces and Invisalign, you could dive in and share 150 things, and next thing you know, it's been 10 minutes and you don't really know if you've answered their question. Because what was their question really? So I work with, responding to some questions with additional questions. So you can clarify, really get to the root of what it is that they're asking, because it could be lifestyle based. It could be fear, discomfort based. It could be a shyness, an adult that is really worried that the doctor is going to recommend braces over aligners. And the more curious the treatment coordinator is, getting to the root of questions and fears, then the faster they're going to receive the answers and information that they need to truly make a decision. And that's how you're actually helping. So a lot of times, when we're balancing out this idea of, oh, I don't like the word sales, I'm just helping people. Okay, well, they want to be sold. They have to be a buyer. They have to become a customer before they can become a patient. And you're employed by a business who's only in business if it continues to earn new clients, right? So it's okay to treat it as such. But part of helping your prospects achieve their ultimate goal, which is to transform their smile, is by selling them what they want, right? That's how you help them. So we just work on a lot on that. Again, it's mindset. Every treatment coordinator has a different background, a different level of experience. Every practice has a different culture. I've got some doctors that spend less than 5 minutes in the consult, other doctors that are still telling the treatment coordinator what the fee is going to be before they leave. I've got doctors doing their own iTero scans, and then others who aren't, right? Like there isn't one way of doing it. And so when I first form a relationship with the practice, it's just meeting them in their moment. Like, how do you do things? And what do you like about how you do things? What isn't working? And then even looking at it and saying, okay, well, this is functional because your new patient column is only 50% full and you have a 40% conversion rate. This isn't going to continue to be functional or possible. Like, here's where bottlenecks are if your schedule becomes 100% full and your conversion rate gets to 80%. So we're looking at how to make improvements that still maintain personality and the office culture, and make it so that the growth potential for the practice is to whatever level the doctor wants it to be. But I see so much that practices are suffering, and the ceiling on sales is created internally. It's
Mm.
because they're not selling well enough, right? So where I would much rather it be that, hey, we're going to cap, like we don't want any more than this because this is what's comfortable. This is the growth vision. This is what's sustainable,
Mm.
and know that they're going to get it every single month, year after year. And that if at any point in the future, the desire was to scale further, that's possible simply by increasing marketing or adding another new patient column, but that everything is dialed in and that conversion rate is just going to keep performing for them.
Yeah, I love that. So I always say marketing doesn't solve your problems. It just makes every problem you have worse. If you have a sales problem, like marketing is just going to make your sales problem worse. If you have an ops problem, it's going to make your ops problems worse. If you have a team problem, it's going to make your team problem worse. If you have a
Yes.
reputation problem, this is a big one. Like you have a reputation problem, it's just going to make your reputation worse. And I love that. It's like fixing the car before you start driving it.
Yes.
That's what you're concerned about, which I love.
Yes.
Backtracking just a bit, you
Sure.
said having the TC send them like hey, there's cost savings and time savings if you're able to get started the same day.
Uh-huh.
Is that on the front desk phone call, or you're actually having the TC send them a video or something like that beforehand?
I always recommend that comes from the treatment coordinator, because again, wherever you can put like face and name and create that connection or kind of the
Cool.
difference, front desk is definitely where selling starts.
Hmm.
So the personality and the quality of that call is going to determine whether people show up or not, and how they feel about the practice before they even come in.
Yeah.
But then getting an email that has a video preloaded in it from the treatment coordinator, or even something from a cell phone that is a quick 30 seconds that is recorded for every single patient. Part of that just depends on capacity. So I have a variety of recommendations for how it can be done, but it is just to have the treatment coordinator personally introduce and set an expectation for the appointment, from not a confirmation. Like the treatment coordinator is not reminding the patient to come to their appointment, or talking about insurance or talking about new patient paperwork. So if any of those things come up ahead of time, that would still come from the front desk.
Yeah.
But this communication from the treatment coordinator is solely an introduction to, hey, I'm Brooke and I'm your treatment coordinator and I can't wait to meet you. And this is what to expect. So very friendly, very personal, but also just tossing in that, hey, we have this cost savings and time savings option for you. I see that you had to take time off of work, or I noticed that your appointment was scheduled a month out because of XYZ reasons, or I see that your child plays football, or, like anything that makes it personal, and says, because of this, we've set additional time aside and would be happy to accommodate a same day start for you if that's in your best interest. So
very cool.
just keep
Very cool.
Get some thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because every sales, like the more I learn about sales, the more I'm involved in it. It's like the pre-selling is really where most of the action happens. Like pre-selling, then you got your pitch, and then once you ask for the money and the objections, like there's a fair amount of action that happens there, right?
Sure.
But this process, like the longer you can make it, where they're actually the earlier you plant the seed of like, I am going to have to make a financial investment in this thing. It's going to be around this much or whatever else you can do. Then the longer they have to come to terms with that. And it's almost like you're taking the time that they needed to think about it and putting it in front of the consult instead of after the consult.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, and the consultation, like I would say the industry standard design of a consultation is that you don't talk about money until after the doctor has done the exam and presented the treatment plan. And for some people, that's intimidating. Everyone
Yeah.
shops differently and everyone's concerned about different things. So, another thing that I started doing as a treatment coordinator and quickly saw a jump in my conversion rate, especially those same day commitments,
Hmm.
was when people's primary concern was, can I afford this?
Hmm.
Then within the first 5 minutes of the consultation, I'm telling them, here's a range,
Mm.
so it could be 55 to 6,500 and, down payment as little as 500. You get to pick your monthly payments. Like, we have options. It is my goal to help make this something that works for you,
Mm.
and then you take it off the table. Like, now they don't have to spend the next 45 minutes going, this all sounds really good, but it all sounds too
Yes.
good. And I'm probably not going to be able to afford it because it sounds too
Yes.
good. Right.
Yes.
And so then they're not even able to fully engage in the conversation or get to that place of being emotionally committed or excited
Mm.
because they're afraid. So anyway,
Yeah.
those are the kinds of things where the treatment coordinator really needs to be good at communication, really good at answering questions, but listening, right? and
Yeah.
and then digging in and then giving the patient what they need. Like, at the beginning, it's human to human interaction.
Yeah.
So how do you treat the person like they matter, not that you're just taking them through a pre-designed process?
Mm.
So we create a pre-designed process, right? And then we create all the ways that we can break it
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that we're taking care of the patient as a person, not
Mm.
just running them through a process.
Yes. I love that. It's like every every sale, just like every case is different. Every sale is different because it's a different
Yes.
person.
Yes.
And you
Yeah,
you
it
have to treat
is.
it. You have to know. Um, there's this quote by Bruce Lee that I love. It's like, I used to think that a kick was just a kick, and then I thought it was more, but now I know it's just a kick. And it's like this process we go through of like, oh, it's just so simple. Like, you just do this. And then you go through the complexity of like, oh, is it actually this much different? Then when you're on the
Right.
other side of that, you're like, no, it's all these same things, but I'm so confident, so comfortable mixing and matching based on what somebody needs, that it's this natural flowing process that feels customized, even though it's really just me being a subject matter expert and like knowing what needs to happen. Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Very cool.
Well said.
Um, so it's kind of an interesting question. But I think you'd have a great answer for it. And maybe that it's too deep for anyway, I'll ask it and we'll see. But
Okay. I'll
um
let you know if it's too
if
deep.
you if you had, let's say there was a doctor that wanted to work for you and you were starting an orthodontic practice, you could invent everything from the ground up just as you would want it, designed for efficiency, designed for high closing rate, same day. Um, and this goes for operations, to how long the consult's going to be, to how many people are there. Obviously, a lot depends on what your goals are and the goals of the
Sure.
doctor. But let's say, first of all, throw out maybe some goals of what the practice would be in your mind, and then how would you set everything up if you had full control?
Oh, goodness. Okay. Well, yes, that's a big question.
Yeah.
Um, okay. I'll I'll add this first.
Okay.
Just that I think that a lot of practices, because they begin small,
Mm.
it's from even a capital position, right? Like,
Yes.
it's the
Yes.
doctor with maybe one or two support people. And as it grows, a lot of times the habits or actions that are formed when you have too much time on your hands and also not enough resources, or one person who's doing three or four people's jobs,
Mm.
those habits carry into that busier business. And a lot of times that's where I help treatment
Wow.
coordinators and doctors discover inefficiencies, ways where you and your process are your own bottleneck.
Yes. That's
So
huge. That's massive right there.
in my magical practice that I
Mm.
would create, it would have enough capital that all of the positions existed from day
Mm.
one,
Okay.
right?
All right.
And that way you have your front office team that I like the idea of your front desk being like the host stand at a nice restaurant.
Okay.
Like they're there to greet,
Hmm.
to welcome, to direct. They've got an iPad. So if there's something that needs to be signed before that appointment or reviewed, it's happening right there.
Mm.
But that there isn't this kind of high counter desk that someone has to walk all the way across a lobby to reach, with someone seated who has a messy desk because it's also their workspace,
Mm.
right? So some of it just, orthodontics is efficient and it's clean, right? Like what you're selling is this process that is minimal chair time. It takes you on a journey that is very much a relationship, but it's a transformation. And so I think that the way the patient interacts with the practice at each of those intervals, like from
Mm.
greeting and the lobby to the brushing station to being in the clinic, to all be very clean
Mm.
and open and bright, just matches the experience that's being
Yeah.
delivered and also the end result. um, as far as sales goes, I think that treatment coordinators should have a dedicated assistant.
Cool.
I think they should have someone who is, taking the x-rays and the photos, loading things into the chart, following up, if someone leaves because they've got an insurance issue or there's divorced parents and the other one needs to agree. Like, as much as we want 100% conversion to be our
Yeah.
goal, there are going
Yeah.
to be a few people who leave without signing same day.
Hmm.
So they better have a good reason and you need to know why, but there's
Yeah.
going to be someone who needs to be followed up with. Um, and then even for that sales position to have opportunities blocks, even if it's every other day, where the treatment coordinator isn't sitting face to face with a prospect and actually has built in time for other high level touches,
Mm.
sending a handwritten note card to someone who started,
Mm.
or even having almost like a marketing budget, so that when you were having a conversation with someone and they were talking about going, taking their kids to the beach for the very first time ever, and Sally, who
Mm.
just got treatment planned for an expander and upper braces is a phase 1, who's 9 years old, was saying how much she wants a rainbow swimsuit. Like,
Yeah.
that the treatment coordinator has this little, even if it's a small budget, for gifting to the patients, to jump on Amazon and
Very
order
cool.
the swimsuit for the patient. Like those, you want raving fans
Yeah.
from day one.
Mm.
And because orthodontics is a long-term relationship, how do you keep them kind of rebought in, so that when their teeth are sore or what used to be level now looks like a skyline,
Yeah.
and you're just kind of in the middle,
Yeah.
like it's not exciting anymore in the middle of treatment, that you're still so wowed, like
Wow.
so impressed with your practice and their customer service and their style of communication, that you're referring.
Yeah.
So, you only have your patient for as long as they're in treatment. And then, it's a business model that's constantly recycling. You're always having to attract and start over
Yeah.
with new customers. But if you're creating such raving fans out of your client pool that they can't help but refer you to even strangers at the grocery store, like, then you're winning, right?
Yeah.
So what are the things that can be done? And then across the board, just that the entire team would know that their role is part of sales,
Mm.
that you're not like, because you're chairside in the clinic, you're as valuable in resetting an impression for that patient as every single time the phone is answered at the front desk, every single time someone walks in, and that almost like Disney or Ritz or anything
Yeah.
that you can think
Yes.
of, like where the team is, I mean, not that you're playing a part, that it isn't authentic, but that it's on purpose,
Yeah.
So you'd never want to walk outside of your orthodontic office and around the side of the building, see 2 or 3 of your clinicians like smoking cigarettes and, using bad words while they're talking about their night at the club and whatever, like, so that you're
Yeah.
always on stage and creating an experience for the patient that aligns with their expectation and makes it so that at the end they go, I would have spent twice as much. Or I'm so sad that I'm done because I'm not coming here consistently anymore.
Yeah.
Right. As
Yeah.
opposed to glad it's over.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Very cool. I love especially the time set aside for the TC to wow the patients. It's very Ritz-Carlton-esque. Like,
yes,
listen, I think they're allowed to spend. Obviously, they have a much bigger budget, but like I think
sure.
it's like $2,000 per day per person per
Wow.
guest that's staying. They can spend up to that,
Yeah.
um, because they know they've instilled these leadership values in everybody in their organization, that they know they're not going to misspend that. And there's so many these wow stories. Like the one I heard was a wedding, and it was a wedding in Hawaii, the Maui Ritz-Carlton, and there
Okay.
was flooding, and so like all the wedding guests couldn't get there, and they spent the money to helicopter a bunch of the guests in to the
Wow.
Ritz-Carlton over the flood because all the roads were closed. And
That's
I obviously
cool.
that's very extreme, but then another one is exactly what you said. I think it was an 11-year-old on his birthday, and they found out through a phone call before they came that it was going to be his birthday and that he liked baseball, and they had like this baseball gift basket for him on his birthday. Like,
Yeah.
you're never gonna forget your
No, you aren't.
vacation with Ritz-Carlton after that.
Yeah.
And it's
That's
such a
true.
cheap, that's like the cheapest. If that person refers one other person and he spent $20 on a rainbow swimsuit, that's
Right.
the cheapest marketing dollars you'll ever spend.
Exactly, exactly. And I also think from the sales perspective, as the treatment coordinator, you're going to engage
Mm,
in conversation and get to know people and really work to earn their trust.
yeah.
When, like, if that's your mindset, right? If it's, I want to know something really special about this person so that I can gift to them
Mm,
or so they can have an experience that is amazing enough that they can't wait to go tell people.
yeah.
Right. Like if you've got people calling to schedule a consultation and their referral source is someone you saw 5 hours ago or yesterday, they don't know yet if
Yeah.
you're going to give them a great end result. Like that part's on faith, but they
Hmm.
already know that you're awesome and they want your
Yeah.
friends to go meet you.
Yeah.
So that's my goal with treatment coordinators, is that there is such an amazing personal experience delivered in that initial meeting
Mm,
that it's easy for them to sign the contract same day. And also, they want to run out and tell their friends and family that they have to go there as well. Like
yes.
that should be the goal.
I love it. What are some, kind of going back to what you said about the doctor starting out with the small practice and kind of
Oh,
bringing the
sure.
habits of the small practice into the big practice? Something there, or it could just be in general. I think one of the biggest things that I've personally learned when it comes to sales is these subconscious triggers where they see something or they hear something or something happens that's just off, and it doesn't matter if everything else is perfect. These little things not being right, for example, cleanliness perhaps or something else,
Hmm.
could trigger like, no, this is not happening.
Yeah.
um where did practices shoot themselves in the foot, so to speak, with these, you know, obviously they all aspire to this Ritz-Carlton-esque experience,
Yeah,
but the the distance between that might be very large for some
sure,
practices, and
sure.
they may feel that. How, you know, what can they do to go from maybe where they feel they are to an okay experience? What are some low-hanging fruit items or things that are commonly done wrong that can be fixed quite easily?
So I think first of all is having authority over your schedule.
Mm,
So I was talking with one doctor, and because they just weren't particularly busy, you know, it
mm,
was a newer practice, they're giving their patients basically the choice of when to come in.
mm.
So then the doctor's describing to me that they're all like cross-eyed busy in the afternoons because that's when the kids are out of school, and they
Yeah.
can't really get patients to come in earlier in the day.
Mm.
And
Can't really get them.
exactly, exactly.
It's
I'm like,
impossible.
okay. I said, well, when someone calls the schedule, it's, oh, fantastic. That's a 45-minute appointment, and that's available on our schedule at this time or this time. Which would you prefer?
Mm,
And it was like this mind blown. And it's like, yes, you do have all of that availability, but you don't have an availability to do a full bonding and a piano repo and a debond and everything from 3:30 to 5.
yeah.
Like that's not the only time that you're open, right? And
Nope.
you don't want to work until 8 o'clock at night because no one wants to miss school, no one wants to miss work.
Yeah.
But it starts at the beginning. Like you can take a patient from loving you to being frustrated with you if the patient has full choice and gets to call all the shots initially, and then all of a sudden you're trying to rope them in
Yeah.
to, you know, because then from the patient perspective, it's, oh, they got too busy. They don't care about me or my needs like they used to. It's like,
Mm,
no, as a practice, they just didn't have the right boundaries or approach to doing business from the
yes.
beginning. So it is okay to, you know, tell someone, even if you have 50 available appointments on your schedule in the next 3 days, you
Yeah.
know, to give specific parameters so that you're directing. And even
Very
during
cool.
that new patient appointment for the treatment coordinator to say, you know, and you'll have parents like, oh, between sports and family, this, that, or the other, like, we're really concerned about missing too much school. It's just fine for the treatment coordinator to say at the beginning. And I think that a lot of times new practices are over accommodating or fearful of setting boundaries because they think that maybe the patient won't choose them. And
Yeah.
you need people to choose you to be in business, right?
Yeah.
Um, but they're actually going to respect the business more, and you as the provider, if you're guiding them and it's clear that you have a way of doing
Mhm.
things. So telling the patient, hey, you're not going to have to miss school most of the time. You know, your typical adjustments every 6 to 10 weeks can happen after school. You will have a long appointment mid-treatment that happens during the school hours. It's always in the morning or the early afternoon.
Mhm.
And we have special time set aside when we take braces off, and that is also in the morning or the early afternoon. You know, so
Yeah.
just kind of keep in the back of your mind, there will be a couple times throughout the next 2 years
Nice.
that we're working together, you know, and it's fine. It's still positive. And then you just go
Exactly.
right on. Like,
Yeah.
so let's talk about getting started.
Great.
And it is what it is. So
Mhm.
the boundaries on your schedule, or, you know, the way in which you do your financing, those are not negatives. They're not sticking points. And assuming that it's going to be a negative or a sticking point for the patient is where you get yourself or the business in
Yes.
trouble.
Yes.
So
I love
that's
that. I love it.
my
Any other ones
recommendation.
like that that are um commonly done and can be fixed quite easily?
I think it's fear around the down payment or financing. I'll see some
Mm.
practices that they're asking for more upfront, and from a cash flow perspective, it makes sense, or there's kind of this fear of everyone's going to choose the smallest possible down payment. So, you'll say that the minimum down has to be 1,000, and that's not possible for some people, but they could do 750 or 500. And one thing that I do not like at all for a treatment coordinator is that they would ever need to step out of their space or leave their face-to-face interaction with the patient to go ask someone permission.
Yes.
Right? Because you just took the floor out from underneath the treatment coordinator. The treatment coordinator went from being the authority and the answer and the guide to not.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so,
Yes.
oh, I need to go ask the doctor, or, oh, I need to go ask the office manager. We don't typically do that. Let me go see if I can get approval, get permission, is not good for
Yeah.
sales. So determining where the wiggle room is, pre-deciding that. So minimum down's 500, but yes, the TC has permission, has the ability, if there's really good cause, if there's a good reason for it, to split that down payment into two. Or if we've got siblings, 2 or 3 people who are going to start at the same time, yes, it's perfectly fine for the family's total down payment to 500, like whatever it is. But those conversations need to be had, and all of that determined ahead of time, so that there is not a reason that the treatment coordinator would have to step out and get permission, because it's value to their role.
I love that.
But yeah, I do see around financing, like, you can offer your minimum down 500 and people are still going to pay in full, and people are still going to put 3,000 down because they want smaller monthly payments. Or you offer financing at 0% interest for 6 months longer than the length of treatment, and not everyone's going to pick that. Plenty of people don't want to have a bill for 2 years if they could just have it for 12 months and they can afford it for 12 months. Right. So I think I definitely see decisions made about financing and what they're making available to the patients that comes from a cash flow fear. And I understand it, or, economy highs and lows, and that would motivate maybe wanting to get more up front or to not extend financing. But if everything else is dialed in, you're continuing to deliver the wow experience over and over and over again, because people are not going to disappear on you. What they owe you, right? So I don't think there's any reason to fear the financing side of it. So
it's like the more I'm in the business, the more I'm surprised by how many ways there are to do the same business. Like,
there is
shocking for a very simple business model. Like, there are so many different things that can be implemented in different ways. And the amount of times I've had a doctor say, like, we cannot do it any other way. And I point to 5 or 6 other clients that are doing it that way and crushing it because of it. Like, oh, okay, all right. Like, I guess we could try that out. And then it works, and they're really happy. It's fascinating.
Yep. And I had that experience recently, a practice in Florida, and we were talking about the flow of their new patient consultation. I'm like, just walk me in the front door to going back out the front door. And it was, the doctor was involved like 3 different times. And then one person on the team was doing something, and it was like the treatment coordinator didn't even have enough time with the patient to really establish a trust relationship. So it was almost like the treatment coordinator was bad news bear. Like that was the person who was showing up with the bill at the end, right? But without any relationship or connection prior. And so we just restructured it. All the elements were still there. They were just in a different order. The doctor was doing one less thing, and the other 2 things were happening at the same time. So, it fixed a doctor time issue, created more opportunity to also be in the clinic or for things to not be running into each other, gave the
Mm,
treatment coordinator an opportunity to really form a relationship. And I mean, instant, like their conversion rate was higher and their enjoyment of the appointment, like just the flow of all, it just
very
felt
cool.
so much better. And but you don't necessarily know. Like I say that all the time, like to people, because sometimes we figure out things and they're like, this is so silly. Like, I can't believe I didn't figure this out on my own. But we don't have an outside perspective
Yeah,
on our own workflow. And we also
thousand
don't
percent.
know what we don't know. So sometimes you don't even know the questions to ask that
Yeah,
would get a different answer.
yeah.
So that's the value of having that outside perspective.
And I think a lot of times we're not ready to learn what we need to learn yet. Like if I shared with you a level 10 sales skill when your TC is at a level 2, like it's just going to go over her head and it's not going to work out. And so everybody
Yeah.
grows through this, incrementally. And the most important part is that you don't give up and you just keep building. And like there's
Mhm.
really no way to fail if that's what you go for.
Yeah, I agree. Just stay
Um,
hungry and
yeah,
curious.
yeah, I love that. Well, Brooke, thank you so much for coming on.
Pleasure.
Let's hear, where can orthodontists find you if they'd like to hire you? And how does that process work of you know, the initial
Yeah,
steps to start working with you?
I do an interview, kind of an application process, because
Mm,
the minimum relationship is 6 months. So I want to make sure
mm,
that we're a good fit and that there really is room and a true desire, for growth, a growth potential. So I only work with
mm.
practices I'm confident I can help. I do guarantee the growth and success out of my program. So step one is that application interview. And then I have a core curriculum that is, I mean, it's set up into lessons or modules and is a combination of video and written and some worksheets or kind of some things to consider. So
Mm,
even like I said, that walking through the front door. So taking yourself on a tour of your practice from the patient perspective or through your new patient consultation as if you were the patient.
yeah,
And is there too much downtime? Or is something repetitive? Or, like, so just helping get the wheels spinning. But a
yeah.
lot of that core curriculum is just making sure that we're on the same page language wise. So like you said, if we've got these building blocks, I want to make sure that we've got a foundation that gives us the ability to build off of it. So that's where that comes in. And then it's one-on-one coaching calls with the treatment coordinator weekly. There's some group team things that can come later in that process, and then working with the doctor on maybe some bigger vision and reports and growth goals and all of that. So
Very cool.
it's a cool journey. I've got a Facebook page, Instagram, website, and people just reach out to me with direct messages or fill out the form online, and that's how we get connected. So,
Awesome. I'll put links to all of
and
those
thank
below for
you.
anybody listening.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. So send me a message and we will get the ball
Yes.
rolling.
Brooke, thanks again so much, and we'll
My
hopefully do this
pleasure.
again sometime.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Talk to you
Talk
soon.
soon. Bye.